What is going on, people? You know what time it is. Another episode of Unfiltered coming your way right here, right now. This one officially will go down as episode number 302. In your scorecards, you can, as always, jump on board 24/7, 365. It is easy. Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts, where most of you are. Artists formerly known as Twitter. X, if you will, at Casey Stern. Get over there, follow, hop up into the bio. There you can follow the YouTube channel and Instagram, both entitled at Unfiltered with Casey Stern. It is good to have you on board. A lot to get to. We'll get into some baseball, some controversy, conspiracy, and then, of course, the controversy and conspiracy for Knicks fans alike, like me my whole life, that we are not allowed to have nice things. We'll get into that as well. Always a nice thing that we, as always, are presented by our good friends at Bet Online. Bet Online, your number one source for your summer sports this season: MLB, golf, NBA, NHL playoffs, and more. All the latest stats, news, and scores, they're all available to follow your favorite teams as well. Latest odds and lines, latest team matchups, player props, and odds on just about every sport you can imagine. So head over to the website today. Use your mobile device. Get in on the action. It's Bet Online, where the game starts. And we start here with some positivity. And that is the story and the performance of Paul Skenes, the dude with the splinker. And if you don't know what I'm talking about and the pitch that he throws, I dissected that with Jim Duquette in the latest Pod 301. Go back and check it out after this one. But we're talking about a dude. And we are in a world where, and I remember being on air when Steven Strasburg debuted, and I believe it was against the Pirates, and he struck out 13. And there were people, oh, it's against the Pirates, or oh, he's not going to be that great, because he's one of many in many different sports. And you could use his former teammate Bryce Harper in this mix as well, though not being a pitcher in this case, where we are the schadenfreude people. We like to enjoy the expense of others' demise. We don't want to champion them. We don't want things to be as they seem. You're being overhyped. You're being over talked about. It's too much. You're not that great. Forget the comparisons, because we want to live in a bubble where everybody we grew up with and grew up watching were the greatest athletes in the history of the world, and nobody will ever achieve what those people achieved, and so on and so forth. But understand this, that if you are watching this guy pitch in his first couple outings, and you hadn't seen him as he came up through the minor league system, you hadn't watched any video, and you just watched these couple of starts, and you don't realize this dude is different, then the only thing you don't understand is the sport. Because we're talking about a guy who is painting with unbelievable amounts of run, 100+ mile-an-hour pitches. He had 12 of them, I believe, yesterday in what, ho-hum, was his first road start. It's at Wrigley Field. He strikes out the first 7 to start the game, ends up with 6 innings of no-hit baseball and 11 strikeouts. And I think the only batter that reached was on a Michael Busch walk in the 5th inning. That's it. And I feel so excited for the Pirate fans and for the city of Pittsburgh, which is an unbelievable sports town. And I remember covering when they had the All-Star game there at PNC, which aesthetically is probably my favorite park in the sport. And I remember thinking, man, you know, between that and we had the Cueto game with that first wild card, right, where everybody wearing black and all of that. Can you imagine if we could bring more postseason play here? But then that team and that ownership never seems to do anything, which is why we're always sitting there and saying in situations like this, when they have any kind of a star, and now to this level of Skenes, we're going to say the same thing and see the jokes on Twitter. And they were there yesterday, which is what uniform will he be wearing in however many years? Because he's only sitting there riding out that first contract before he's gone. And that may very well end up being the case, because that's always the case when you're dealing with the Pittsburgh Pirates. But for right now, I'm jacked up for that fan base. I'm excited for that fan base to have something to clutch onto. And they've got other young players, and they have a system that is there. And we'll see whether or not they're willing to go at deadlines. And we'll see whether or not they're willing to try and cough up at least a little bit more money to try and drag somebody in, or what Skenes can draw just by himself by being at the front of this rotation, as long as he stays healthy. And that's where you have to go next. Because if you're being honest, what the real thought is behind watching him pitch. And what really is going on in the background for all of us is how long this is going to last. How long are you going to throw that many 100+ mile an hour pitches? Because the last time that we saw somebody look like this, and this is with no offense to Spencer Strider and a lot of other guys who the last couple of years have been this way, but it immediately takes you to Jacob deGrom. And we know how difficult it's been to keep him healthy. Arms are not supposed to move in the way that they move when you pitch at all, with the torque that you pitch at all. Then you go ahead and you look at the max effort and the max velocity and in general, the amount of injuries you get from that. And now look at Skenes and the way he throws, and you have to wonder and you have to be scared. And that is the fear. The fear is of the injury. Because I want this dude in the sport. It's great for the city of Pittsburgh. It's great for the Pirates. But it's great for baseball fans because that dude is going to be somebody who every kid is now going to be on MLB The Show, going to go and play with and be the Pirates, which is something they weren't running to do before the last couple of weeks. But an unbelievable performance, and a guy who, if you're a Pirate fan, I got to know, how excited are you, young or old? How are you feeling? Hit me up on Twitter or X, if you will, at Casey Stern. Of course, you can comment on the YouTube channel all the time on those videos, Unfiltered with Casey Stern. Get me on Instagram as well. Or if you're listening, Apple, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcast, jump on one of those other social media platforms and send me a note because you got to be jacked up. Now, the opposite of positivity, the opposite of excited, the opposite of just falling in love with man crushing is where I was when I saw this story with David Fletcher come out yesterday. Obviously, we all know who David Fletcher is, longtime infielder in the league, long time with the Angels, now in the system with the Braves here in Atlanta. He's in AAA. But he's a guy who played for 5 years with Shohei Ohtani and I didn't, to be honest, before this article came out, realize this. But according to the reports in the article on ESPN by Tisha Thompson and some of the sources, one of the closest friends with Ohtani on the team, a guy who was tight with Ohtani, a guy who had a relationship with Ohtani. Now, we remember the last time we discussed on this program and had to nationally and everywhere else a relationship with somebody close on the team and in the league and in the states that Ohtani had, and that was Ippei Mizuhara. And unfortunately, similar connection here. David Fletcher and a friend of his who also played in the minor leagues, both, according to these reports and sources detailing the activities to ESPN, both bet on sports with the same SoCal bookmaker who took wagers for Ohtani's interpreter. The same one. The same one, Boyer, who was involved in stealing, not him, but Ippei Mizuhara, remember, stealing nearly $17 million from Shohei Ohtani. Now, if you go back to that story, not to relive it, you can go back in old podcasts. This is where I sat on it going in short. Number one, I began this story like you all did, saying, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Ohtani probably didn't bet, but I can't believe he paid off the gambling debts for this Mizuhara. What the hell's going on? That's where we sat for 48 hours. Then all of a sudden it was, well, Ohtani didn't know anything about it whatsoever. And I said in his statement, A, it was longer than I thought. B, it was more in depth than I thought. And C, if we're being fair, it seemed to hold a lot of water, to use the My Cousin Vinny term. But there were a lot of questions. How does it get past his team to the level that it did? How does all of that money, I don't care how rich you are, because I got a lot of rich friends, and I'm telling you, they would notice if, $250,000, $450,000, then $1 million, and all those chunks of money are just dissipating out of their account, whether or not somebody else had their numbers or not. Because, by the way, they also have their own numbers. And I'm not saying that's showing up in an ATM, but they understand the importance of making that money, and they are paying attention to that money. So how did all that happen? And all those questions and all of those concerns. And what does it all mean? But, we all want to brush it under and believe, and I'm with the all, want to brush it under and believe that Ohtani could do no wrong. There's no way that Ohtani could know anything. Ohtani would never do that. Ohtani is sunshine and flowers and Hallmark cards and baseball. He would never do that. Now, in the same way, I'm going to tell you now, for those who have not seen this story, and it's developing, and an investigation now will begin again, that if you are sitting there thinking that something doesn't hold water here, you and I are in the same boat. Does that mean that I think Ohtani gambled? No, I have no idea. Does that mean that I think Ohtani is a liar? I have no idea. I'm not going to be dumb enough to tell you no, because I don't know. Because I sat there and covered from the Mitchell report, being on all those days, and every other player since that we sat there and said, that could never happen. I lived through Ryan Braun, where I went on air and said, no, he would never do that. No way. Fletcher's close friend, Colby Schultz, played in the Royals system for 3 years, 2018, 19, and 2020, placed bets on baseball, including Angels games that Fletcher played in while he was on the team. Again, this all according to the ESPN report, not according to me. But they're not putting that out if they don't have it. So now I got Ohtani's closest friend, happened to be betting with the same bookmaker that he knew nothing about. It was all Mizuhara. Now I got his closest friend on the team betting with the same bookmaker illegally. Now I got that player on the team, his friend, betting on Angels games that Fletcher was playing in. Fletcher bet on a lot of sports, but not baseball, sources said. Remember, illegal still to gamble with this bookmaker regardless of the baseball aspect, but still that helps. LB players and employees, as ESPN notes, are able to bet on sports other than baseball, but not with illegal bookmakers, as I just said. League rulebook states that players betting with illegal bookmakers are subject to punishment at the commissioner's discretion. MLB declined comment. Investigations will begin. Now, what does all of this mean? I don't know, except this. Two things. One, this story's not over. Number two, that if you were sitting there in the hoodwinked side, and I was kind of getting there, sliding on the seesaw towards that end, after all this Ohtani stuff came out, and then we had this statement, and okay, that kind of looked good. And then we had, well, all the investigations, again, let's go through it, Homeland Security and the IRS and the attorney, everybody's, right? U.S. Attorney's Office, everybody going in. This is not like, sitting there, the hall monitor at high school, okay? I guess you don't have those in high school, but you know what I mean, elementary school. This is not like the lunch lady caught you stealing milk. These people understand what they're doing. They're investigating, and they come through. It's almost knocked the mic off. And they come through and they say, no, he didn't know anything about it. Then I said this on this podcast. Then I'm to believe he didn't know anything about it. What the hell am I going to say? Well, no, you see, I'm a conspiracy theorist, and I watch a lot of Dateline with Keith Morrison and Josh Menkowitz, and because of that, shout outs, that I'm going to sit there and tell you that, no, I think something's wrong here. Because if they did all the investigating and they said it's fine, then maybe it's fine. But something's not fine. Because now I got a closest friend in an interpreter who did all this with Ohtani seemingly knowing, according to his Mizuhara, and then Mizuhara lied. He never knew anything. He stole $17 million. Is he a fall guy or not? Now I got closest teammate friend for a 5-year period who's got a friend betting on baseball on Angel games, and both of whom are betting with the same bookmaker that Ohtani has no idea who the hell he is, never heard of him, never met him, never did anything with him, never gave him money, never paid, never bet, never did anything. Mizuhara did it all. So now am I supposed to believe in this triangle that Mizuhara is in the cahoots with Fletcher and Ohtani has no idea? I have no idea. But I know this, something fishy. Something fishy. Your thoughts, Apple, Spotify, everywhere in your podcast. Then get over to Twitter. Give me a nod. Give me a thought. Let me know your reply in the video. You can also do that on YouTube at Unfiltered with Casey Stern. Want to hear your thoughts. Now, I'll tell you this. Thoughts from a Knicks fan and from somebody who covered basketball and did NBA finals and all of that for years. Because they're all the same. This idea, and I've said this, and I go back and I said this a couple of podcasts ago, and I laugh about this because I've heard other people say the same thing. My guy, Ariel Helwani, has said the same thing. Many people who are Knicks fans in this business have said the same thing. This idea that, like, the NBA wanted the Knicks to be in the finals. So that's why they were rigging all the, the referee calls early in the series. And they've been trying to make everything go the Knicks' way. Well, where the hell they've been the last 40 years of my life? Because I'm 45, and for 40 of them, I've been a fan of this team. Driving me into as much therapy as the Islander logo above me and the Mets one that is under it. Where they've been all my life trying to push this team anywhere except to the doldrums. I understand Zion hasn't been perfect, but we didn't get that pick we were supposed to get. Got R.J. Barrett. I watched the Knicks take Frederick Weiss instead of Ron Artest. Meta world peace. You get it. And we could go on forever and ever and ever and ever. From bad calls to mishaps to injuries to guys who don't want to come here to being laughed at as a franchise. And we could talk from the Dolan scenario and all of that. Knicks fans understand the plight of Knicks fans, and that is that we are never, ever, ever, ever allowed to have nice things. We can't have nice things. We're not allowed to have it be easy. And that's okay. But this is not. Already without Julius Randle, so we all tell ourselves, well, the way OG is playing, maybe they're a better team without Julius Randle. And maybe for the postseason run, they were. But then we watched the way OG was playing, not just the 20-plus points or whatever it was in the game he got injured in the middle of this series, but the way he was playing before that. And the way he battles and the way he guards and the way he defends and the toughness he brings and the minutes he gives and what it means for the team and the size and all of that. And then gone. And we saw this in the regular season because he missed a lot of time, but he had just come back. So you dangled him, you teased, and you brought it back, and then you took it away again. You took it away again. That is what Knicks fans deal with. And if you just dealt with 4 seconds of silence, it's because I got so mad I slapped the mic off. So hopefully you buffered and here you are. But that is what you deal with as a Knicks fan. Then it's gone again. Josh Hart has become one of my favorite Knicks of all time. He and DiVincenzo both. They are in the category of the John Starks of the world already with what they've done in such a short time. And they represent, and to a Knicks fan, only a Knicks fan kind of feels this sounds dumb if you're not a Knicks fan, everything the Knicks are about. Because for a Knicks fan, everything the Knicks are about, you think Anthony Mason, you think Charles Oakley, you think the toughness of those 90s teams. That's everything the Knicks are about. It doesn't need to be pretty. They get it done. When a tough needs to get tougher, they get tougher. These dudes couldn't be tougher. It's why, and I'll get to this in a second, all the minutes haven't really seemed to affect them much. But now Josh Hart goes out in a game 6, leaves the floor, wasn't good before that, gone, and the team gets blown out again, where seemingly at home they're one team, on the road they're another. Now, the good news for the Knicks heading into Game 7 is Tyrese Halliburton is one player at home, and on the road he's another, because in Game 5 he looked like, to be honest, James Harden in every important game he's ever played. Like non-existent, no go, no urgency, no takeover, nothing. Passive. And I love the way he passes the basketball, but there's a difference between being passive and just passing the ball to set up your team because it's the right time to do it. That not the right time to do it. I expect better in Game 7 from him. Dangerous for the Knicks, but we'll see. But now Josh Hart's gone. And now you're sitting there and you're thinking, and I'm sure he'll play in Game 7, whatever level he's playing at. Jalen Brunson's nowhere close to 100%. OG's not there. You got minutes from Burks you don't want. You got minutes from McBride you don't need, even though he's been great and we understand what he can do, what he can't. I don't want to see Jericho Sims. Hartenstein is a guy who reminds me of, and I love him. But it's like, when Andy Chavez tried to play every day. Like we don't need 40 minutes, but now you need 40 minutes or more. It's tough. It is tough scenes.
And you feel like you just can't have nice things. But the one thing I wanted to make sure to make clear, and this is as somebody who, now look, I had the pleasure when I was with Turner to work, and it was only for like 4 days, but it was for one playoff series, work at the desk with Tom Thibodeau and talked his ear off behind the scenes, off air about all the Knicks days when he was an assistant. He couldn't have been a nicer guy. Like I love this dude. And like that was one of the cool parts about being on that desk for those years, because I got to work with Frank Vogel for a while. I worked with Jason Kidd, like a lot of the guys who are coaches who've been in and out, and so some current, some not in the NBA. I really got to know them. A lot of time with Stan Van Gundy. And Tibbs is awesome. Like I love the dude. For people to get on him, you're not understanding that without him, you're not here. Now, I understand that if we're 1-1ing in power ranking, without Jalen Brunson, you're not here. That's top of the list. But after that, before any other player on this team, it's Thibodeau. And by a long shot. And that includes Josh Hart, that includes DiVincenzo, or anywhere else you want to go. If Tom Thibodeau didn't handle this team the way he handles this team with the injuries they have, because look, if they got Julius Randle and they got OG, they're one of the deepest teams in the league in terms of running 8-9 that you trust and going out there trying to win. And they would be a team that could win a championship, which is why you get so mad if you're a Knicks fan, because you know it's there. This team, healthy, can beat Boston, and they can beat any of those teams in the West. You just know it. But if Tibbs didn't coach the way he has coached, they wouldn't be here. And for people to be sitting there complaining about it is crazy to me. If you're a Knicks fan, want to hear from you, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter. You can also get me, of course, or X if you will. Get me on Instagram at Unfiltered with Casey Stern. Go over there, give us a follow. Do the same on the YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe and tell all your friends. Get over there at Unfiltered with Casey Stern. Lots more coming in the weeks ahead. Game 7 upcoming on the Knicks side. The Skenes career one to watch with fingers and toesies crossed for the injury. And I got no idea what the hell is going on with the Ohtani situation, except that it's not over. This episode is 302 in the books. As always, Unfiltered is brought to you by a good friend.